So in this video, I'm going to be going over the different types of targeting that are available on YouTube. We're going to first go over what the types of targeting are, and then I'm going to show you exactly where to find them in the Google platform so you can know how to navigate the Google platform to find these different types of targetings to add them to your campaigns. And then finally, I'm going to tell you about the application of each type of targeting, because depending on whether you're doing info products or you're doing really wide B2C lead gen or really narrow B2B targeting, sometimes the different options are more appropriate for different situations. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to show you the different types of targeting and then show you how to use them. So here are the types of targeting available to you on YouTube. First of all, you have keywords. Second of all, you have custom intent. Third, you have custom affinity. And both custom intent and custom affinity are built from your keyword list, and we'll go into that. Fourth, you have built-in audiences. These are the pre-built audiences that Google supplies you to use for your targeting. Number 5, we have app audiences, which is where you choose apps from the Google Play Store and target people who use those apps. Number 6, we have URL audiences. 7, we have recently visited targeting. And number 8, and finally, we have placement targeting, my least favorite of them all, but we'll get into why. So first are keywords. Keywords. The way keyword targeting works on YouTube is very similar to how it works on Google search. So if you search something in YouTube, let's search marketing. If you search something and then you were to click on one of these ads, then if somebody is targeting the keyword marketing, their ad is going to show on that video. Now, there's a little bit of a gray area with this because it doesn't quite only work that way. It also works that if somebody has searched that keyword in Google and then they recently went to YouTube, supposedly the ads can show in those scenarios as well. Google isn't really clear about exactly what counts as a keyword search, but it seems that when people search keywords in Google and then they go directly over to YouTube, your ad, if you're targeting the word marketing, will show there as well. So it kind of has that double-edged function. Now, where do you add keywords to your campaign? So it's pretty simple. We're going to create a new campaign real quick. Don't pay any attention to any of these settings. It doesn't really matter. We'll go into, in different YouTube videos, we'll go into some different campaign creation stuff. We'll just put a budget here. But basically you scroll down and you go to the section. Always make this say standard. Even though we're not doing settings right now, I'm so repulsed by responsive ads. I'm going to tell you to do standard. Keywords. Right here is where you add your keyword list. A keyword campaign should generally have between 25 to 40 keywords is a good amount from what I have found. In terms of when you want to use keywords, so we'll go back to the slide. When do you want to actually use keywords? What applications do they have? So first I'll tell you when not to use keywords. B2C targeting or B2C lead gen more specifically. If you're doing B2C lead gen, keywords suck. Don't know why, but they suck. If you're trying to generate mortgage leads, solar leads, personal injury leads, whatever you're doing on YouTube, if you are doing keywords, they are terrible. Now, keywords are very good for B2B targeting, very good for info targeting, anything where you want to target a more narrow segment of people, a really high intent group of people. That is when keywords really shine and when they have a lot of use. But for B2C, really broad targeting, lead gen type targeting, they don't really serve that much of a function. So that is keywords in a nutshell. Custom intent. Custom intent. So custom intent, and the next one I'm going to show you custom affinity. These are both types of audiences within the YouTube platform that are built from your keyword list. I'll repeat that. So you have your keyword list, You've collected a list of keywords that you want to target. You then use that keyword list to build a custom intent and custom affinity. And we'll cover custom intent right now. So what is custom intent and when do you use it? Custom intent is basically looking at the user's search history. So if they have looked up a keyword in the past, then, and you put that keyword in your custom intent audience, then your ad will show to them. So it's kind of like keyword. It's kind of like an upgraded keyword campaign. It's like a keyword campaign on steroids. It's not just the people who are searching keywords right now. It's people who have searched keywords. Okay? So it's people who have searched keywords in the Google platform. So in order to create a custom intent audience, we're going to go ahead and exit out of this keyword campaign. You're going to go to Tools and Settings, and you're going to go to Audience Manager. I'm going to try to go slow. Sometimes I go too fast on these, and some people get lost. But Tools and Settings, Audience Manager, Custom Audiences. Then you're going to hit the plus symbol. Let's just name this Intent. Now, you'll see these two bubbles here. The second one is Custom Intent. This one's Custom Affinity. This one is Custom Intent. Now, why do these not say Custom Affinity or Custom Intent? Because they changed the names, and the new names suck. So we're going to call them by the old names. I'll be doing this 5 and 10 years from now. They'll probably change the names 5 more times. As far as I'm concerned, from here until infinity, this first one is Custom Intent. My bad. This first one's Custom Affinity. This second one is Custom Intent. And you can see it says people who searched for any of these terms on Google. So people didn't really know what intent was. I think that's why they renamed it, so people could a little bit better understand what this targeting meant. Now, so you plug in your keywords here. Let's type in marketing, and let's just plug in a bunch. Let's plug in several here. So we have our custom intent. Now, you're going to hear a lot of people say that you need between 50 and 100 keywords to create a custom intent audience. That's not true. You can get away with just a couple, and it works very well. That being said, the more narrow you go, if you're targeting really narrow things, like let's just say you're trying to get restaurant owners on the phone with you, you're running an ad towards restaurant owners, I have observed that larger custom intent, meaning at least 25 keywords plus, tend to work better the more narrow you go. If you're more broad and like let's say you have an info product that's about make money online, that's when you can use just a couple custom intent. It seems to work better. It seems to work fine either way if you're going broad. You can use a bunch, you can use a few. Generally, a metric that I look for is over here on the right, you'll see under Audience Insights, when I say United States, English, and available weekly impressions, I look for 100 million plus as a general rule. Now, there's exceptions to this. Sometimes some Google accounts will say like one keyword gets 100 million plus, which generally isn't true. So I'm going to tell you as a general rule, if you're going narrow, if you're going B2B, use like 25 keywords plus. If you're going super broad, you can use less keywords than that. Like this right here could be an example of a custom intent audience. You could get away with just using 5. So that is custom intent. If you're going narrow, use a lot more. If you're going smaller, you can use less. So what's next? Custom affinity. Now, what custom affinity is this is the targeting that is most similar to Facebook interest targeting. It's going to look at that user's broad behavior across the Google platform and put them, like let's say you use marketing as a keyword in your custom affinity campaign. It's going to find people who have looked at marketing websites, they've watched YouTube videos on marketing. It looks at their general overall behavior from a 30,000 foot view and matches them with whatever keywords you add. So if you imagine Facebook interest targeting, but you can use custom keywords as opposed to having to use the built-in function. So it's really useful. The way you build that is it's right here. It's right above the custom intent. So it's this first bubble right here. Now you'll notice as soon as I made this change, what happened to the weekly impressions? They went from 100 million to 500 million to 1 billion to 5 billion. When you use custom affinity, it's doing a very large projection of whatever keywords you feed it. So it's taking these couple keywords and saying, okay, let's find as many people as we can that fit these general behaviors and match them on here. Now, another thing you want to pay attention to when you're creating your custom affinity is over here on the right. When you look at topics, you want these topics to generally match whatever you're trying to target. If you put some keywords in over here and then you come look at topics, and these are like completely different from whatever industry you're trying to target, then you need to go through and clean up your keyword list. There's probably some in here that are throwing it off, and you can delete them one by one to figure out which one. Like if you see like dogs and pets show up over here, then obviously something is going on with your keywords. And you can only do this for custom affinity. Like if we go back to custom intent, you don't see those topics. They don't have that feature. Not sure why. It really should. It's a pretty useful feature. But for custom affinity, you do have the benefit of being able to see, hey, are my topics, are the categories Google's aligning my keywords with, do they match what I'm actually trying to target? So for custom affinity, generally 3 to 5 keywords is what you want. There's really no reason to go tremendously bigger than that. You can try larger keyword list, but 3 to 5, you can even use 1 if you want to test something out. So you can, let's see, like for example, like even just the keyword ClickFunnels. Like, okay, so that's actually pretty small. That's actually surprising. I would look for, I would look for like 100 million plus generally. I mean, 10 million to 50 million isn't tiny, but like generally, you want at least 100 million plus here. So you could do ClickFunnels pricing. You can add a few of these, and let's see if we can bump that number up. Okay, so now we got to increase to 500 million to 1 billion. So with affinity, you generally don't need as many keywords as you do with intent. One keyword in affinity carries a lot of weight and can get you a large impression count. So usually about 1 to 5 is what I do for affinity. Now, built-in audiences. So Google has built-in audiences for you to use so that you don't have to go through and create these custom ones. Now, they're both useful in different scenarios. I actually forgot to tell you guys. Custom affinity is not good for narrow. So to tell you what custom affinity is useful for, custom affinity is not really good for narrow targeting. Like if you're trying to target like a certain type of business owner or like really narrow targeting, custom affinity is better for really broad targeting. Unless if you layer it, and there's going to be a whole nother YouTube video on layering. You can check my channel. But used alone, if you're just targeting this in a campaign, it's better for niches that are really broad. So if your niche is broad, use custom affinity. If it's really narrow, use custom intent. Now let's go into built-in audiences. So the way you find built-in audiences, and you can only access these when you're creating a campaign. So we're going to make another campaign real quick. If you scroll down, you're going to see audiences right here. Now you can search them. There's 2 different types. So the way I got to this, I'll go slower because I always forget to go slow on these things. You're going to go to browse right here. And then there are 2 relevant categories: in-market and life events and affinity. Now you notice it uses the word affinity. These are Google's built-in affinity audiences. So you can go through these and search and see if any of these match your niche. And they don't always. If you're in something really odd or a really unique niche, it's going to be hard for you to find targeting that's pre-built into Google that matches what you're looking to actually target. So these are the built-in affinity, and then you have in-market and life events. And as you can see, there are a lot of pre-built-in options here. This stuff is really good for like e-com. It's really good for nutrition offers. It's really good for some courses, depending on what type of course it is. What it's really, really good for, where this excels, both in market and affinity, I categorize these into one thing. I just call these built-in audiences. There's no functional difference between in market and affinity. They're this, as far as you're concerned, as far as I'm concerned, or anybody running YouTube ads, these are the same thing. They don't. There's no situation where you're going to want to like sit down and think, okay, is my product more about in market, or does it fit affinity better? They're the same thing as far as their actual use is concerned. Now, where these excel is for B2C lead gen. These are really, really good for B2C lead gen. Really broad B2C targeting. Auto insurance, life insurance, anything like that, these crush it. If you're trying for more narrow B2B targeting, you're gonna have to layer these. And again, there will be a YouTube video on layering, but you're gonna have to layer these if you're trying some really narrow targeting. So these are good for broad offers or for B2C lead gen type stuff. Topics. So what topics are, I'll show you where to find them. If we scroll down a little bit more, so this is the same. You can only access topics when you're building campaigns. Scroll down a little bit more, you're going to see topics. They're right below keywords. Now, under topics, you're going to see a lot of similar options to what you saw back for the pre-built audiences, the affinity and the in market. Some of them even have the same names. These are also really useful for B2C lead gen targeting. They're also good for any broad type targeting, whether that's e-com, whether that's nutrition products, whether that's really broad info products. They're really good for broad targeting. But if you want to use them for narrow targeting, for narrow B2B, again, it has to be layered. So what are topics? Essentially what topics are is across the Google platform, Google has put their different types of content into categories. So they'll categorize certain types of videos as one topic. They'll categorize certain things on the Google network as another topic. And people who engage with these pieces of content across the Google platform get lumped in to these targetable topics. So if somebody has engaged with sports related content and you select like college sports, you're going to target those people who have engaged with sports related content. So that's what these are. For B2C lead gen, they crush it. For anything broad, e-com, info, anything really broad, they crush it. Anything really narrow, you need to layer them with other types of targeting. They're too broad for narrow B2B type stuff. So, app audiences. These are a new addition to Google. New as in I think the last 4 months, 3 or 4 months they've been added. These are really useful. I'll show you where to find them. So we're going to go back to the home screen here. And you're going to go up to Tools and Settings. Then you're going to go to Audience Manager. Then you're going to go to Custom Audiences. And then you're going to hit the plus symbol. Go down to this one where it says People who use types of apps. Okay, now you're going to hit X on this. So it's just people who use apps. And what you can do here is you can search any app from the Play Store. So ClickFunnels, ClickFunnels Stats. I'm not actually sure what these apps are. I don't know if ClickFunnels Stats is like an official ClickFunnels product, but you can see, you can search any app within the Play Store and target users that are similar to the people who browse these apps. So if you use Facebook ads, these are kind of like lookalike audiences built off of apps from the Google Play Store. Now, one interesting thing about app audiences is when you're searching for them, like if you're trying to find an app, sometimes when you search the app's name, you can't find it on here. Like especially some, like if you're in a like very narrow B2B niche and you're trying to target apps that your target audience uses, sometimes when you search for the app name here, it won't show up. The reason for that is because the app is under the LLC name of the company. So sometimes you have to do a little bit of investigative work to find the LLC name of the company, search that here, and then you'll see the app come up. It's a bit of an odd thing, but if you spend a little bit of time, it's well worth it. Generally for app targeting, now you can't see impressions over here. It's not like Affinity where you can see the data over here. But as a general rule, with app targeting, it's very similar to Affinity. You only want to use 1 to like 5 of these. And generally, I like to do like 1 to 3. I like to group together really related apps and target those. They're very similar to Affinity in the fact that just a couple of them has a very large projection of people that it builds. So I can't see the stats on this. I can guarantee you this is like probably like 500 million plus impressions. It's at least much larger than custom intent. And I just know that from running ads myself and experience with it. These are very good for B2B and very good for B2C info, anything broad. Sometimes for B2B, if your niche is very narrow, you will have to layer these. You can't just run these alone. If your niche is too narrow, you're going to have to layer these. But anything broad, these are very good targetings to test in your first campaigns. Now, URL audiences. There's a lot of misconceptions with how URL targeting works on Google. A lot of people say like, hey, you can get your competitors' URLs and retarget their traffic with YouTube ads. That's not how URL targeting works. It'd be really cool, but Google I don't think they would ever allow that. Nobody would want to be listed or advertised on the Google platform if they just let people retarget your traffic. So what is URL targeting? Let's say we want to, let's go grab ClickFunnels. Let's go grab the ClickFunnels URL. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to come back here. You're going to do people who browse types of websites similar to. And we are going to delete this app one because I'm just showing you this one for now. And you're going to add a URL. Now, what this does is it takes whatever website you feed it and it looks at users whose behavior is to browse websites similar to this one. So if we look under topics here, and we can tell if a website is a good website by looking at the topics, just like we did with Affinity. So you can go down here and see marketing, advertising, marketing, business and industrial. This is a very good URL to use if that's what we want to target. As you can see, massive impressions, 10 billion to 1 trillion. I assume T means trillion. I failed senior math class, so not really sure, but it's a big number. It's a very big number. These are pretty much exclusively useful for really broad stuff. Info, e-com, products, if your software is really broad, you can do it with this. But when you start getting into software and B2B applications, you really have to layer this one because this is really broad. Because if you think about, if you think, okay, my service or product is for B2B, does your B2B niche realistically have 10 billion impressions per week available. Most likely not. Most likely not. You're going to have to layer it down. But for anything broad, this is very useful. I really only use like 1 to 3 URLs here. There's really no reason to use more than that. You can grab a couple different URLs from that niche. So you can like grab the login URL. Oops. You can grab the login URL and plug that in here. If I'm going to add multiple URLs to one of these, I'm going to group them based upon the same website. So these are very useful for any targeting that's very broad, B2C or broad B2B. Recently visited targeting. So this is a really cool option. This was also added recently. This is added about the same time they added app audiences. So we're going to go down here and you can see people who visited certain places. We're going to remove this one. Okay, so let's type something in here. Mortgage lenders and brokers. Now, this is very useful for both wide B2C targeting and for narrow B2B targeting. These audiences are very good for both. They have application in both. Now, you may be thinking, if your product is for a certain group of people, and you know those certain group of people have a certain buying behavior, like let's say you have a product or service that's for people that need to go to mortgage lenders and brokers. This is very good targeting. This would probably crush it for you. Just this. Now, that's for B2C. That's for something broad. For B2B, you may be asking yourself, how is this useful for B2B? If I want to target a mortgage broker, how is this useful for B2B? Because this is looking at people who recently visited mortgage lenders and brokers. I assume it's getting this from like Google Maps data or somewhere like that. But how is this useful for B2B? There are 2 types of people that show up to a mortgage broker's office. There's the people looking to get loans, and then there's the mortgage brokers themselves. So when you target this for B2B targeting, like you're trying to get mortgage brokers on the phone to sell them marketing or a service or whatever, you may be thinking like, oh, I'm just going to get a lot of people who are looking for loans. You'll get some of that, but you're also going to get a ton of mortgage brokers. And as long as your ad is specific and calls out the people that you want, this is very effective for B2B targeting. So for B2C, if your users show a certain buying behavior, and that can be searched in here, this will crush it for you. For B2B, if your niche is included in here and you can target it, you can use this for B2B as well. It works really, really well. So, placement targeting. I really don't like placement targeting. For B2B, for narrow B2B stuff, it's essentially useless. So just get that out of your head. If you're doing narrow B2B targeting, placement targeting is useless. It really only has uses for B2C targeting, like wide targeting. You need videos or channels that get a ton of views for this to work. So let's say I want to target on Ty Lopez's channel or one of his videos. What placement targeting is I can take the URL of these videos and plug it into Google. And let me show you real quick where you plug these in. New campaign. Leads, video. So where you plug these in is all the way down here under placements. And then you can, if you want to do YouTube videos, you can plug in the video URLs here. So you can grab the URL, plug it in here, add one placement. There's your video. If you want to do a channel, you can also do the placement by channel. Now, there's a lot of debate. Now, how these work is when you choose these as placements, your ad is going to show up before the video. Assuming the video has ads turned on, which not all videos do, and I'll show you a way around that in a second. But assuming that Tai Lopez has ads turned on for this video, if you choose this video as a placement, your ad is going to show before this. And same thing with the channel. If you choose the channel, your ad will show before videos on that channel. So, when is this useful? Really broad stuff. Really broad stuff. B2C, e-com, info. And you have to use videos and channels that get a high view count. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. If you're doing B2B stuff, like if you're trying to target like personal injury attorneys or something like really narrow, it's not going to work for you. It just does not work. So if you can even get it to spend money, which a lot of the times you can't because the channels in these really narrow stuff, B2B niches, just don't get the views. But if you can even get it to spend money, the traffic just does not convert. So if you're broad, if your product is broad, this can be very useful. If your product is not broad, this is pretty much a guaranteed waste of your time. So that's where you plug in your placements. Now, if you remember when I mentioned you can only place ads on videos that allow ads. The way you can easily find videos that allow ads is with a software called TubeSift. This allows you to search for ads. You can search by keywords. It allows you to search for videos that allow ads to be placed on them. That way you aren't adding a bunch of videos that you can't even run ads on. So use this to find your videos if placements apply. Generally, the use case for placements is when you're first starting. Because even in cases where they do work, they're not really scalable like the other targetings that we've gone over here are. Because you're limited by the traffic these videos get. And videos organic traffic, it dies out over time, generally. Depends on the channel. But usually, if you go forward in time, the view counts on those videos is going to go down, and you're going to have to constantly find new videos to add as placements. So it can be a good strategy to start off with if you have a product or service that's really broad. But if your product or service is narrow or you want to scale, they're not that useful. They sound good in theory, but they're not that useful. So as a general review, let's go over the different targeting options and when they're useful. For B2C, if you're doing lead gen, this is mainly for like lead gen type stuff. Topics, built-in audiences, the built-in market and affinity. Custom affinity, custom intent, recently visited, the people who have recently visited certain offices or businesses, and open targeting. For lead gen, open targeting works really well. Just no targeting at all. Now, sometimes open targeting works right out of the gate. Sometimes you want to use the rest of these to get your first 20 to 50 conversions, and then you can start testing open targeting. For lead gen, topics and built-in audiences are going to be your bread and butter. For B2B, for info, for e-com, these are what you want to target. All of these are good options for those niches. If you're doing coaching, topics, keywords, custom affinity, custom intent, URL, app, and placements. And you guys can screenshot this, save it somewhere so you have it as a reference. But for B2C, these are the ones that you want to target. For B2B, these are the ones that you want to target. Now, I did mention some of these, depending on how narrow your B2B is, you are going to want to layer. And there will be another video on my channel if you want to search it for how to layer and when to layer. So guys, that's it for this video. If you want to learn more about YouTube ads, I have a private Facebook group. The link is below. You can hop in there and get access to that. I'll answer any questions you have over Facebook ads. If you want more individualized coaching, I also have a coaching program where I help you launch and scale YouTube ads for whatever business you run. And there's links to schedule a call beneath this video for that as well. So that's it, guys. If you want to watch more videos on my channel, they're to the right. If you want to interact with me more directly and get coaching, you can sign up for that below. I'll see you guys later.